Well, hello and welcome to In the Growth Space. This is the show for leaders who have a hunger and thirst for growth without compromising their values or their priorities. Thanks so much for listening in. My name is David McGlennon, and I am your host. Now, if this is your first time listening in, I just want to say a hearty welcome. The aim of this podcast is to help you find ways to grow your business and grow your career, grow your team, and really grow yourself. I share stories of growth from people who've gotten out of their comfort zone and broken through that terror barrier. I love finding new ways to lead and expand my leadership, and I want to share extraordinary people with you. Now, in this episode, I'm talking with Cosimo Bisceglia Jr. Cos, as he's called, is the manager of operations at a company called IDL. Cos was a part of our very first cohort of the Emerging Leader Inner Circle, and he's gone on such an amazing growth journey. He's one of the most energetic leaders that I know. You'll get that here in a minute. And he has a passion for the people that he leads that honestly is second to none. He calls his style of leadership causativity, and that causativity is really infectious. And he's going to share some of his journey with us on today's show. Now, I'll be back at the end to summarize my takeaways and just some of my thoughts from our conversation. It's a good one, so hang on tight. Here's Cosimo. Well, hey, Cosimo, so great to have you on the podcast. I know that you are a loyal listener, and it's great to actually have you on this side of the microphone this time. Welcome.
Thank you, man. I'm so pumped to be here. Love it.
Yeah, man. So I'm excited for this conversation for a couple of reasons. Number one, you and I have had a history together, and we've done some coaching. You've been part of the Emerging Leader Inner Circle. But I guess I wanted to just share your story with the audience because, you've been at your company for, I think you said it was going to be like 38 years in the fall. So 38 years in one place. Wow, dude. I mean, that doesn't happen in this day and age. What kept you there?
Yeah, great question, David. First of all, thank you, and really appreciate the opportunity to be on the show. So I'm pretty pumped. That's a great question. What kept me here? It's funny because you meet people today, and you don't hear that length of service much anymore. It's a lot of 3 years here, 4 years here. For me, it was I grew up in the company. My father worked at the company for 40 years, so I literally grew up as a child in the company. I remember coming to my dad when I was 18, saying, "Hey, listen, Dad, can you give me a job for the summer?" Mm-hmm. He's like, "Yeah, no problem." That was 38 summers ago. And
that's amazing.
And when you begin the journey, not knowing at 18 that you're on a journey, you're not sure how long where you're going or how long it's going to last. But really, the simple is a one-word answer. It's people. We've had great people that I've been privileged to be part and work around and meet and learn from. And, it just, that was a driving force of keeping me here. And not just people, but the opportunities at my company at IDL, the opportunities have been there. And for folks that want to grow and are aggressive, it's just grabbing away. So it's been people and opportunities. And that's really been the catalyst.
I love that, man. And I love the fact that you talk about people, because I know that you love people. And I guess, the question that I have is, yes, you've been on this journey, you've been, here for a long time, but what actually started your leadership growth? If you could maybe like pinpoint what started that growth and maybe even the recognition that you are a leader?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I was going through some of my, I have my David McGlennon folder. And I'm like, when did I start with this guy? And I'm going back to 18. I have November of 18 as a first date. But, I was a leader for many years here, a leader by title, but not a leader really in the sense of helping other people grow. And there's a difference between a group leader and leading the group. Yeah. I was a group leader for 15 years. but I didn't do a great job leading the group. And I looking back now at why or how I came to that conclusion, I never had a mentor or a coach prior to you. And I've been with you 11, 18 is what I'm looking at.
Yeah, nice.
Prior to you, I didn't have that. And if I would have had a mentor or coach years prior, I would be much further ahead in my journey. So, besides personally thanking you, which I do every week, I think once I got on that part of the journey and realized, my gosh, this is heavy, this is valuable. Realizing what it was doing for me, and then seeing, hey, if I can get some of my team into this, but just a lot of the stuff that I've learned through the inner circle, and I know we'll talk about that, some of the good stuff. But I mean, just getting a coach and a mentor, I can't stress the importance of that. And I get mad because I wish I would have done this 10 years ago. I'd be further ahead, but that was a big part of my start of my journey.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. Well, first of all, thank you. I didn't ask you to say that.
You don't need to.
I do appreciate it though, but I think it's an important part, because I think it's a part of everybody's growth journey that we need other people. We need other people around us. We need mentors. We need coaches. I mean, I personally didn't know there was such a thing as a coach, until probably 10 years ago. And so I get it. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about, helping others recognize that there is a need for growth. And I guess, as you've been on this growth journey, what are some things that you've learned that have been really helpful for you personally, and maybe, other leaders might need to know too?
Yeah. And it's funny. I was going through some of my notes, David, from the last, 4 or so years. And I got some stuff highlighted. For me personally, I'm a very high strung person. I'm ready to rock and roll every minute. I have some stuff highlighted, and these are from conversations that you and I had. And it says, slow down. You don't want to arrive by yourself.
Wow. That's good.
And for me, I needed to hear that. And because there's minimal value if I arrive by myself. And by slowing down and being intentional and going back and getting my team and the others around me involved with what we're doing, the value and the weight is just that much more important. And I go back and I look at that all the time, just to downshift and to listen to folks. And
I want to ask you something about that, because I think for someone who is like you, who is, their normal speed is fast and full throttle. I get it, because I don't know that I'm as like full throttle or afterburner as much as you, but I am pretty fast paced. But how hard is that? I mean, how hard is that for you?
It goes back to one of the very first phrases that you introduced to me, called the comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And I needed to get out of my comfort zone and just take it down a notch slow. In my case, it was a few notches, and slow down and listen and be intentional. And I don't have all the answers, and I needed to, share that. And my wheels are always thinking of a solution or how we can rectify the situation. And by listening to others, there's answers out there. Sure. And it for me personally, it was about being intentional. And, I have 60 folks that report to me. I have connection meetings every day with different people. I'm intentional by doing that. And it goes back to really just getting out of my comfort zone, slowing down, listening, and being intentional.
Yeah. Yeah. As you think about the benefit of slowing down, what has been like one of the benefits, or maybe a couple of benefits of actually slowing down, even though it's been hard for you to do? What's the benefits that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much it's hard for. I guess it's not. It's just not my DNA. So
right.
By slowing down, it's giving me an opportunity to really learn a lot. Because I'm always in my position. I oversee all of our production and trying to hit timelines. So the wheels are spinning. If we do this, we can do this. We do this. But slowing down, it's helping me learn the process of what a lot of folks are dealing with and some of the obstacles that they're dealing with. And that's really been valuable for me personally in the department and the folks that work with me, because they're facing obstacles and challenges that I was just not seeing, but almost overlooking in a way, because I'm running. So it's been really a great learning opportunity for me personally. So I think that's by slowing down, and I continue to do that, but it's a ongoing challenge for me, which is a never ending journey.
Well, and I know for a lot of leaders who are listening to this, it doesn't matter if you're. So I'm super familiar with the DISC profile. So the D is the driver, which is you. The I is the inspirational. The S is the supportive. The C is that calculating analytical type. No matter where we fall on the DISC circle, if you're familiar with the DISC profile. No matter where we are, we have to be willing to visit the other parts that aren't natural to us. And so as an I-D combination, I have to be able to visit that space. I have to visit that C part of my personality and that S part of my personality, so that I can actually help others and I can actually listen to them and understand them and really be in their world a little bit more. And I think that's in a sense what you're saying, is that you're having to slow down and become sometimes more analytical, maybe even be more supportive and really sitting with somebody in a slower pace than you normally would. And it's just a different quadrant of your personality, but you have to visit there.
Yeah, and it goes back to the comfort zone. No one wants to get out of it. I mean, let's be realistic, right? Everyone wants to stay where it's comfy for them, and this is what I know, right? This is what I'm good at.
Exactly.
But by going into those areas that you're not as comfortable with, or you're not as strong, or you think you're not as strong, that's where you will gain strength, right? That's where you will gain confidence and become stronger. And that's even for me. Like in the past, I would become very defensive or be defensive whenever I was challenged with something. I've come to, I think maybe it's part of my coming with age, but I've come to the realization, like, I don't need to be defensive. Listen, I'm vulnerable. I'm not perfect. I can learn from this situation. And I deal with that, every day. And but by dealing with it and learning to be better from that, it helps me when I do my connections and when I have the opportunity to mentor my team, because that we find a lot of that. The chest goes out and they're defensive. Hey, it wasn't my fault. I had to deal with it. So by me starting with me, then I can help coach my team.
Yeah, and that's an important thing that you just said there. Me starting with me. And one of my mentors, Paul, talks about, personal growth and development is a you and you deal. And it really, I think if there's anything that I can share with leaders, is that you have to start with you. And I'm so glad that you said that, because it's really true. But it takes a little bit of humility to do that, right?
Yeah. And I always felt that way. But I just didn't have the guidance or the direction. Thank you, David, to really see that path, because I can't help others till I help myself. And it's that simple. And I just love it. I mean, I've got turned on to, not just your podcast, but just podcasting, growing, every day. And, I have a nice drive on my way to work. And I share, listening to a podcast is like being in the locker room, right? And I get all juiced up and all pumped up. And when I pull into the building, it's like I'm running out into the basketball court, and the doors open, and I'm all pumped from whatever I'm listening to. So it starts with me. I owe it to myself to better myself in order to better my team.
That's a powerful. If you didn't take anything away from this podcast episode for our listeners, I think that's one. I owe it to myself and I owe it to my team. I love that. That's such a great phrase. I want to take a little bit of a turn here for a second, because I know that you were part of the inaugural, inner circle, the emerging leader inner circle. And I think that it was kind of an evolution of some thought that your leader Kevin Peters and I had, and I'm just curious, what impact, I guess, did being part of that inner circle have on your growth path? And I'm not asking that to pump me up or anything like that, but I'm asking it because I think there's a lot of leaders out in the world today who think that they can do it by themselves. And so in a way, it's a little bit of a leading question, but I guess I'm curious from your perspective what that meant for you and how it impacted you.
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, first of all, I thank Kevin and our company for committing to this type of growth. I mean, we've done different classes, or we had maybe a seminar, a one-day thing, and you do it, and then you push it to the back burner, and maybe you reflect a little bit. But this is really the start. The inner circle of something bigger, something that our company's never done before, where we committed to, kind of a bi-weekly group seminar. And it was a lot of my peers and being like on the first wave and in the first round was pretty cool, because I've always loved this kind of stuff. And because it's just, let's talk about being better and growing and comfort zone and all that good things. So I know when Kevin made the commitment and we got some of my peers involved, right away, I knew this was going to have some weight, because this wasn't a one and done. This was going to be a journey. And again, it was, I'm one of those folks, I couldn't wait for the meeting, but the takeaways were just some of the topics that we went through, and I keep going back to the comfort zone, but that's always one. It's, but for me, it was not talking, right? It was just, I would put myself on mute and just listen to some of my teammates. Right. But it was, I really loved the inner circle. And as we were going through it and progressing through the year, all I could be thinking about is, I can't wait till my team, I get my supervisor, my group leaders, start to get them involved in the next round. So when we were able to go to like round 2, and I think are we in round 4 right now?
We are. Yeah.
I mean, it's gone down so many, not 4 levels, right? To different leaders, and even to some of my, not lower leaders, but just folks that are on the floor. They're involved. So they see the commitment that we're doing. It's just the impact that it's having. I feel it and see it every day.
Yeah. And I guess the thing that I would ask you, or ask, for your input and insight on, is what do you think the impact has been for the company, at least maybe in your department, because that's where you've experienced things. And I don't know what you think about the impact that it's made. Yeah,
well, I see the impact and I feel the impact, because going through 4 rounds, and I don't know what the average number, 8 to 10 people. Let's say, it's 8, you're hitting 32, 35 people that are now a different version of themselves than they were a year ago.
Yeah.
So you take those 35 people that are out there on the floor, out there, and I hear the dialogue. I hear the Dave McLennan kind of angles or maybe situationals, and them being able to react differently.
Yeah.
So we feel it and see it. So that kind of stuff is contagious in a good way. I mean, some folks use it more than others, but but the ones that want to be there and want to be in those sessions and they're in the sessions, they're sponging it up and they're utilizing that. I see it and feel it every day.
Well, and it's interesting too, because after the first year, we recognized that you said something that kind of triggered a thought for me, because we recognized that it was better to create a nomination process as opposed to kind of just a selection process. Like, oh, we're going to put you in, we're going to put you in. Yeah. But actually we go through a nomination and a selection process now to make sure people do want to be there.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I've talked about this. I mean, if you don't want to do something, if you're going to anywhere, if you're going to say, hey, we want you in this session or this group, and you don't really want to be there, your heart's not going to be in it. You're not going to take it in. It's not. It's going to come in and go right back out. And we've talked about that, and we've seen the value of having people in there. The more likely they want to be in this, right? Yeah, I want this kind of stuff.
Right. What as a leader, as you look at kind of like your own vision for leadership, what's been something that has helped you to really have a clearer vision for your leadership?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the main things I've been focusing on, and I've always done it, but it's really been much heavier in the last couple of years, is really building relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Building relationships with my team. And It's funny because if you ask any of the 65 people that report to me what my title is, they would not know what my official title is. My title is a teammate, is a helper.
Yeah.
And no one on the floor has ever had a mentor or a coach. I never had till 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So taking that level, everything I've been through with you and all the topics and discussions we've had, I've been able to take that and have one-on-ones with folks that are like, hey man, this never happened before. Yeah. Thanks for listening. And just cool. By building those relationships, it is adding value to the production floor, which ultimately adds value to our results at the end of the day.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah,
but building. I just want to say this real quick.
Yeah,
Dave, building relationships, it takes time.
It does.
It takes time, and that's one thing I struggle with in the past because I'm running and gunning.
Yeah.
And faster I walk, faster I talk. No, you got to slow down, be intentional, and build the relationship, and give the folks the time to talk.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it reminds me of a story that you told me just the other day of a teammate that was having a bad day, you know, and you were very intentional about reaching out to that teammate.
Yeah.
And created the time. I mean, you didn't really have the time or space. I mean, you guys are in the middle of a really intense project, right? Yeah. And now you're having to kind of deal with the teammate. You know, what impact did that have? What impact did it have on slowing down, intentionally reaching out to that teammate, and then, you know, being able to give him some space to talk? Yeah,
it was a very stressful, heavy day. And you know, the person just was struggling to deal with it, and they basically walked out. Sure. And you know, in the past, I would have been like, oh man, how could they walk out on me? We're so big. And my first thought was, I hope he's okay. Hope he's okay. And at the end of the day, I reached out through a text message. This is someone who's early on, so I've just started building a relationship with. I said, hey, first question I asked was, hey, I hope everything was okay. I said, you know, please take the weekend. This is a Memorial Day weekend, so take the weekend. Let's reconvene on Tuesday. And you know, I didn't say, hey, you should come back. You should do. Yeah. And you know, Tuesday morning, one of the first faces I see outside my office, and he's knocking on the door. Wasn't scheduled to be there, and he comes in, and we came in and we had a nice 20-minute conversation. And you know, he was apologetic, but he thanked me. He thanked me for reaching out. Yeah. And he said, and this is a fairly young person. He's like, you know, the other places no one ever cared before. And you know, I figured the impact that I'm thinking to myself on my drive home, the impact that I made in this person's life, and this person's been here 2 months. Yeah. Wait till he's been here 22 months. Yeah. And you know, it's just, I know
that's what's going to keep him there too. For 22
that's right.
months.
Well, I think I keep going back to building relationships with people. It's about the people. If you build relationships and you have a good team, you can take care of anything.
Yeah. And so true. And I hope that as the listeners, the leaders who are listening to this really catch this, because it's so important, especially in the world that we live in right now. You know, it's so hard to find people that want to work hard and who believe in your mission. And when you care for them, it helps you to be able to solidify their employment, their membership on the team, and it really creates a culture of caring, which you know, we're all human beings. We have to care, and that's going to then drive our results. So it's something I think is really important.
You know, for folks that are listening, and I listen to a lot of your podcasts, and I'm going to say this directly to the leaders and the folks listening: be sincere. Yeah, be sincere, because they will know if you're not. Yeah, you know, I come around every morning and say good morning to 65 people every day. That's awesome. You know, I make the rounds. Sometimes I'm quicker, But they know that and some of them will, hey, Cos, how was your weekend? Like they're asking me.
That's
and I'm
cool.
like,
Yeah.
but be sincere, because they'll know if you're just saying good morning, just to say good morning. But then you have to stop and ask a question, right?
Yeah.
Because asking those questions we all know how important they are.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, I know that's something we talk about in the emerging leader
We
group
do.
is just the value of asking questions.
So valuable, but they take time.
Yeah, they do. They do.
They take time.
And that's, I guess that the kind of, there goes the, the shifting gears and being able to downshift a little bit and push that clutch in. So, so I want to shift gears. Speaking of shifting gears, I want to shift gears a little bit with you and go a different direction, because you experienced something recently as part of, a participant who participated in Turning Point. And I just wanted to ask you some things about Turning Point, because, you and I have had conversations prior to you even like registering for the event.
Yeah.
And I loved seeing the internal dialogue that you went through, and then actually ultimately deciding to go and really invest in yourself. Probably for the first time ever, maybe. But so talk about that internal dialogue. Like, what was that like for you? And what was the decision process like?
Yeah. First of all, I'm wearing my Turning Point bracelet.
Yes, you are. How about
that? To wear.
Yes, I love it.
No, it started. I mean, I remember when this was first out there, and you first put it together, and you talk and you introduce it to me, to us. I'm thinking to myself, besides the financial commitment, investing. I just knew it was time to invest in myself. Doing the podcast and inner circles with you, and just all our one-on-ones, that's an investment. But this was a different kind of investment. But this was really out of my comfort zone. And I sat here and asked you, said, David, I said, is this good for me? Am I worthy? I said I asked you that because, I'm thinking I'm going to go to a place where there's all these high CEOs and presidents. And, I'm a man in the trenches. I'm a leader. I'm a manager down here. And you just said to me, and your selling point was, Cos, this will be good for you. And I trusted that. And, then I started talking to some Kimberlys and some folks that I know that have gone through it before. And you hear this, it's a life-changing, it's really made a big, you hear that kind of stuff. But I say this, and I say it proudly, it was one of the best things I've ever done for me personally in my career, ever. And it was, there was some heaviness. I mean, besides, it wasn't like a 2-hour session.
Right.
I mean,
it was 3 days, right?
It was a 36-hour, 48-hour session. But it was overwhelming. Not, I want to say overwhelming. It was heavy in a good way. I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to leave. It was that impactful for me. And I loved it. I just loved it. And I was leery. At first.
Sure. Well, and I remember too, you talking about getting outside of your comfort zone, because I think it was that, just like navigating the airport by yourself, because your wife is the one that normally does that for you. I think that was great though, man. It started with that. And it ended with that. I love it. It was good. It was a great experience. And just being in a room with 50 other people that are like me in so many ways. And I knew really none of them. And now it's like, I've got 50 brand new friends through Facebook, through our group. It's just, the relationships that you build in such a small period, it's crazy. It just, it was just so many resources now. Well, and what's interesting, I don't know, so if people are just listening to this on the audio, they may not have noticed it, but if you're watching this on the YouTube, you're going to probably notice or have seen the change in Cos's emotions. When you started talking about the event, there was some things that welled up within you. And, and I've noticed that. I've noticed that not just about you, but others who have gone through it, because they got in touch with an emotional part of themselves that they never really had maybe tapped into before. And it's like, and I know Paul talks about like peeling away the onion, layers and really kind of getting to the heart. So I'm kind of curious, was there something that really like touched you at a very deep level, that had, maybe a profound impact for you at Turning Point? And if if you don't want to share, that's fine too. I don't care.
No. There was a lot that a lot of takeaways I had, personally, professionally, but, being in a room with 50 other folks that are on kind of the same level. Some of them are coaches, some coach others,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got, everyone had that same feel, right? So you're not selling this stuff. They're all there because they want to be there, right?
Yeah.
They want to become the next version of themselves. So you got 50 sponges out there listening to you and Paul and Andy, just sponging that in, and we're all sitting there with our own little notebooks and we're taking notes. And at one point, I mean, I'm an emotional person by nature, but at one point through that weekend, it might even been more than one point, like I'm holding tissues, right? I'm shedding some tears. I mean, it was just, there was a lot of good takeaways, but the content was the content was well because there were subjects we were diving into.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about resentment and we talked about letting go and it was forgiveness, right? I mean, and that was a big one for me. And I had some things that I had to let go, and I don't think I would have. I'm a much better leader and person from that weekend.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I mean, and I know that you did we do, some pairing up exercises where we pair up with other people. And I know you paired up with one of my buddies, Jeff Hancher.
Oh, loving the Jeff.
Loving the Jeff. Yeah, man. And I guess, as you think about pairing up, not just with Jeff, but I mean, just those pairing up exercises, what did that do for you? I mean, what did that tap into for you as you paired up with somebody else?
Yeah. I mean, there were some great pairings. There was Karen, there was Jesse. It was really great because you got to hear their journeys a little bit. And, although I'm there focusing on my journey, you start to hear some other journeys and some of the things that they're going through in their lives and through their journey was really fascinating. And because there's a lot of fascinating stories / journeys out there. Yeah. And this wasn't a room full of 20-year-olds. I mean, I had a conversation with, she was like, an older lady, super nice. She was 80, I think, and she's on her journey, right? And it was
Tisa,
right. Yes.
Tisa,
And my eyes are wide open, and I'm just, I just started mine at 50, and I'm 55. But I'm like thinking to myself, my gosh, where am I going to be at 80? Right? Just the journeys were just fascinating, just listening to them, and just like I said, it's like you built 50 new relationships.
Well, and I guess being around other people like that, one of the things that I've recognized is that it helps me to expand my vision for, my dream, my goals and the things that I want to accomplish in life. When I can see not only just, somebody who's in their 80s, but there were also teenagers in the room too. And
you're right.
Camille brought her daughters and both of her daughters. I mean, seeing that age spectrum and just kind of, even like you said, hearing some of the stories of the people that were in the room was really amazing. And I think I told you the other night too that the other day that at Saturday night piece where we were debriefing from the day, I literally had to fight back tears because it was I didn't envision the impact that the day would make or that the event would make on people. And anyway, it's pretty interesting. Well, so if there's a
first of all, David, I didn't fight back tears. I just let them come.
You just let them come. I know. I shouldn't have fought. I shouldn't have fought them. Yeah, for sure. I love it. Well, as we wrap up here, what's one or two things that you just kind of share with other leaders that that's important that maybe we haven't talked about today?
Yeah, I'm looking at some of my notes through Turning Point, and I've got some things highlighted. One thing that stuck out with me is you cannot grow in toxic soil.
Oh yeah.
And if you're in a situation that is not healthy, emotionally, spiritually, physically, you've got to get yourself in a healthy situation. And it starts with you, right? I mean, if you're in position to make it healthier, you got to do that, because, as corny as it sounds, tomorrow's not promised.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And get yourself in a healthy situation so you can help grow it, right? Because we all plant seeds in a way, but a lot of us leaders are in position that we can water that, right? And that soil's got to be fresh and clean. And a lot of it starts with us as leaders.
Oh, that's so good, Cos. Yeah, that is so good. Yeah, I appreciate that. Man, thank you for sharing your journey, because I know there are going to be other leaders that will listen to this and maybe even see themselves in your story and know that, it doesn't matter where you are in the journey and where you're starting. You can start at 50, you can start at 20, you can start at 80. And really just be very intentional about your growth process. And I think more than anything, that's what I hear from you, and that's what I see in in your life as well. So thank you.
No, David, I thank you. I thank you for this time and this opportunity to do this podcast, and really just thank you for your commitment with me and in our journey together. And it's been wonderful, and I love growing. And I keep this box of tissues every time we talk. When we hang up, I just reflect a little bit. And I thank you, man. Thank you a lot, brother.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here today. Wow, those were some really amazing takeaways. And I don't know about you, but it's pretty amazing when anyone is with their employer for over 30 years, coming up on 40 years, actually. And, I think that's really, really impactful. And I think, too, one of the takeaways that I got from this conversation with Cosimo is that really when we care for our people, that's going to keep our people around, and it's going to build a culture where they never want to leave. And the reality is, though, you've got to be sincere about it. You've got to sincerely and authentically care for people. And when you do that, you're going to make a huge impact on your people, and you're going to help them to grow, and you're going to also make an impact in their lives as well. I love something else that he said when he thought about his leadership. He said, being a group leader is different than leading the group. Wow. I thought that was really impactful, because just because you've got a title doesn't necessarily mean that you're actually leading the group. And so understanding that and making sure that you are leading where you're supposed to be leading and actually taking the reins and doing it is really important. The other thing that I got from this conversation that I thought was really impactful was that honestly, we really need others around us so that we can get other perspectives, we can get insight on our blind spots, but others around us help us to grow. And so if you're not in an inner circle group right now, I invite you to reach out to us. In the show notes, there will be a link to an application that you can actually fill out. And then myself or one of our team members will reach out to you and find how we can serve you. But the other thing, the quote that I think of this conversation, of all the conversation, was amazing. Quote, "I owe it to myself to better my team." Is that not impactful? I owe it to myself to better my team. I think that that's something that every leader listening to this needs to take away and take to heart. The last thing I think that is really impactful from this conversation is just this idea of being very intentional about connecting with people and building relationships despite the pressures of work. Now, he didn't say this, Cosimo didn't say this, but the time that he was in when this individual walked out and was having a really frustrating day was a really intense project for his team. And so it took intentionality to get outside of the situation and actually message the employee and really let them know that he cared. And so we have to be intentional. Even with the pressures of our work, we have to be intentional. So, hey, I just want to say thank you for joining this episode of In the Growth Space. It's really my pleasure and my honor to be here. And if you found value, could you do me just a small favor and just share it with somebody? Hit the button on your podcast and just, click share and shoot a text message to somebody. That would honestly just mean the world to me, because I'm in this to make an impact. I want to make an impact on more people, to show them the value of growth, both professionally and personally, and in our companies, in our work world. And I'd love to hear from you as well. And if there's an episode or a guest that's really made an impact for you, I'd invite you to send me a note, david@davidmcglennennen.com. Thank you so much for listening in this episode. We'll see you again next time for another episode of In the Growth Space. Until then, be well.